Yo, everybody, welcome to Off Panel, a weekly interview podcast about all things comics, brought to you by Sketch.com. I'm your host, David Harper, and this week's guest is the co-owner of Chicago's preeminent comic shop, Challengers Comics and Conversation. It's Patrick Brower. Thanks for coming on, Patrick.
Hey, I did it. I'm back.
You're back.
It's a record. We did it. I'm the single most guested person ever on this show, and nothing you say will make me believe otherwise.
I think you are the longest running from an annual standpoint. I mean, there's no one that can beat you because you've been on every year of the podcast.
Yeah, all right, cool.
That's pretty good.
I'll take it.
So how was the day in the shop?
Oh, man. So it was a very good sales day, which is odd because midway through the day, I turned to my colleague Andrew and said, man, this day is garbage. But it really picked up in the back half. But everything we do now is so much more labor intensive that even a slow day is so physically draining that you feel like it's a huge day. And this is mainly due to our recent switch over to Manage Comics and using Shopify as our point of sale. And there are days where they're legitimately small business days, and I get home and I'm like, I am wiped out. Mm-hmm. So much extra work.
I feel like you've been talking about that for a while, and obviously you should be because it's still a lot of work, but what is so different that is making it so much more work? Because theoretically, and I know this is an extreme theoretical for the world of comic shops, I feel like a lot of this stuff should be hashed out by now, but at the same time, you did just literally switch point of sale systems to Manage Comics. Sure. What were you using before? The Pull Box or whatever the hell it is from Diamond?
Well, Pullbox was our subscription service, but we were using Comic Suite and Retail Management Hero, both through Diamond.
And so you switched to Manage Comics?
Yeah, we were using Comic Suite since early 2009. That's how long we'd had it as our point. It was the only point of sale system we ever had. When we first opened in 2008, it was still a cash register and graph paper, just spreadsheets for sales and subscription stuff like that. For subscription, we were using the ghostly remains of Melchior Thompson's Comtrack, which was done separately on a laptop.
This is going to shock you, but I have no idea what that is.
That's fine. I mean, that's, as I said, it was already a dead program back then.
I love the ghostly remains.
Yeah. Yep.
So what is making it so much more exhausting, like the work?
Well, so you and I have had many conversations over this past year about just how much more work is involved. We get shipments every single day of the week now. Every day of the week we get stuff because we order from so many places. And you can place one reorder with, let's say, Penguin Random House. That reorder will show up in 8 different boxes in like 1 to 4 weeks from when you place it, because everything isn't housed in one place. It's anywhere across the country. So you'll get like a single envelope in the mail with a book. You'll get a box with 2 books. You'll get a larger box later with the bulk of the order, but then the remnants of it trickle in forever. So like just the idea of receiving an invoice in any type of data management system, it's not as easy as here's your order, you close it out, you're done, because they never get closed out because it takes forever for everything to fill. Nobody has everything at one time. It's all coming in little tiny shipments over an extended period of time.
So is that in part, so it sounds like partially because the stuff from Penguin Random House, as one example, is coming from multiple places. But then on top of that, is part of it also because product availability? Like it's like you get it shipped when it is available?
Yeah, I mean, for the majority of what we're doing, it's reorders. So it's stuff that is currently available. And that this isn't, I'm not even really talking about initial orders. For initial orders, we get Marvel stuff comes almost every Monday, although it came Friday this week because they shipped it out early because of Martin Luther King Day. And Lunar comes anywhere Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of the week before. And then I still go to the warehouses in the suburbs to get Diamond on Tuesdays. So those are pretty consistent. It's just all the reorders, but reorders come from Diamond. PRH, Simon and Schuster, Hachette, Ingram. And that's just comic product, that's not counting posters or buttons or action figures or comic supplies, and all that stuff also comes in, just less frequently than weekly.
I can mail you some comics. Do you want another person to get comics from?
No, I want less.
You don't want some old Valiant trades that I don't want anymore? Are you sure?
Oh my goodness. That's very kind of you to offer, but I think those would be better served at your next garage sale.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't want you to waste the shipping. That's all it is.
Oh, of course. It would be, I have to admit, it would be really expensive. Even if I put it in flat rate boxes, it would end up being really expensive. But
David, did you get a Christmas card from me this year?
I did. With the most potent smelling ornament that has ever existed.
The reason I ask is because so many people haven't gotten them. And that's just a tribute to the postal system in our world. And I thought of that because of just how, even though we're technically the same country, you shipping me those Valiant trades might take forever.
Oh, yeah. If they got lost, I don't think either of us would be sad about it. I'm sorry, Valiant. This is unnecessary, accidental stray slander to Valiant. It's not even strays. I'm just deliberately doing it.
Yeah, you're just pointing out things that you read and you enjoyed. You just have to curate your space. That's all.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
That's all it is.
Thank you for that, Patrick. But
sure. And let me. I want to jump back and answer the back half of your question. The other reason it takes so much more time is having switched over to Managed Comics. Managed Comics is it's a brand new system. It's a really new system that's technically still in beta, and there's a ton of pluses for it. But there are some things that just aren't quite there yet, and they're so receptive. And we within 2 days, we had a laundry list of things that we would like them to make changes of. And they got to it right away. And that's on top of the fact that they have a roadmap of things and improvements they already wanted to do, much less these things that were like, what about this? What about this? What about this? So that being said, they're working extremely hard to get this done. But one of the issues, and this is only temporary, and that's why we're okay dealing with it, is that Managed Comics is basically an app for Shopify. It's not its own program. It's an app that works with our point of sale. It's one of many apps you need to really get the full experience for using Shopify as your service. We use an app called Stocky, which maintains all the stock levels and can generate reorders for us. It can say, what we used to be able to do in Diamond, we could say, hey, we've got the 10 of Swords softcover. We want to have 5 in stock at all times. Once we get to 3, let us know to reorder.
Nice.
And that's a thing that Stocky does. But that just means that's one more place our data has to be stored. So it's integral for, we can't, otherwise it's just us being looking at the shelves going, I don't know, I guess we need some or whatever. So that's an app, but there's also an app that we didn't know we were going to need, which opens draft orders. And I'll make this as non-boring as possible. When a subscriber has books in their file with Managed Comics, they have 2 kinds of orders. They have a subscription or they have pre-orders. And we call pre-orders special orders, meaning one-shots, graphic novels, a single issue, not an ongoing thing. So they got 2 kinds of items they have in their account: subscriptions or special orders. So when they come in, we have to go into Managed Comics, pull up their account, and take that order of all the books that are on hold and send it to the draft order application. And the draft order application sends it to the register. And once you send it from the draft order to the register, all their books and things are on screen. And that's how you bring somebody out, right? Fine. It's one extra step, fine. The only problem, and this is why everything is so much longer and harder, is that when that draft app takes the data from from Managed Comics and sends it to Shopify, it strips all the data from it.
Oh my God.
So
what the hell?
What it does, it says, hey, we're ringing up David Harper, and it says, hey, David Harper has Batman 119 in his list. Well, what it did in that transfer is it doesn't tell you Batman 119 is a comic. It doesn't tell you it's a DC comic. It took away David's built-in subscriber discount, and it added tax. And comics are not taxed in Illinois. They're dated periodicals. There's no tax on them. So we have to go into each item and turn off tax for every item. And tax in Chicago is 3 separate taxes: city, state, and county. So we have to hit 3 tax buttons. Then we have to go into the price of the book and put your discount back in. And it is literally 10 steps per item on the screen to get it to where it's supposed to be.
Every time?
And every time.
Like when you ring somebody up?
When you ring up a subscriber.
Okay, Patrick, you've just talked me out of, you know how I always wanted to open my own comic shop? You just talked me out of it. I'm out. I'm done.
I mean, but again, this is a temporary thing. Managed Comics is building a component that will eliminate our need for the draft application, and then it won't lose any of the data.
I would hope so.
None of that is Managed Comics' fault. It's the fault of that other app. But we have no other way to get the information from Managed Comics to the Shopify point of sale.
Yeah.
But that's just subscribers. Ringing people up off the shelf, no problem at all. It's a breeze. With this new point of sale came all new gear, so everything is wireless and cordless and Bluetooth. So we're not limited to, like, the barcode reader can reach anywhere. You know, we're not limited to just where that is.
It just got some kinks to work out.
And everything else. Yeah, exactly.
Pretty significant kinks, but still.
In a month or two, this will be great. And for the customer end, we have like a 90% rate of people who used Pullbox but are now using Managed Comics. 90% of them say, this is so much better. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that are not loving it are the people that are so ingrained in older systems, it'll take them a little while.
Yeah.
That's all.
I was just going to say, I will say that your online store is very easy to use, to the point where when somebody asked me who was in Milwaukee, they asked me where they could find Archie Kuo Johnson's No One Else that wasn't Amazon, and I went and looked on your store, and you had it. And so I gave them a link, and I don't know, I hope they bought it. I have no idea if they did, but I'd like to think that they did.
That's one other quick little drawback to this is a Shopify thing. Every order that comes in Shopify sends us an email. Great. However, it considers every registered transaction.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So basically it sends us emails for every transaction. So what I had to do was set up a mail filter that opens all those emails and sends them to a different folder.
Mm.
But that means I will miss, because like web orders get counted in that net. So I miss those. So I constantly have to keep refreshing the unfulfilled order page on Shopify when I'm at the store.
This is why people should believe comic shops when they say that the job is not always fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, one of the good and bad things about Managed Comics is that it's cloud-based. So previously, when I would want to, and I would do as much work from home as possible because it's a way more comfortable environment. You know, I have a good chair. We don't have chairs here. We have a stool because everything is so much higher. You know, the counters are higher, and I could relax. And it's really hard to do monthly orders when you have to stop and answer the phone, answer questions, ring people up, which is why we're here. Don't get me wrong. We're here to ring people up, but it breaks your train of thought. And you need to have a mindset when you're doing ordering that, you know, you need to be in the zone, if you will, when you're constantly going title, numbers, sales, subscribers. And when that gets broken repeatedly, it's harder to get back into and it's harder to do the ordering. So I would always log in from home at night, but it would have to be when nobody else was using the system. Because Managed Comics is cloud-based, we can be in it any time of day from any device and multiple people simultaneously.
That's awesome.
That's great. That is huge. And I'm looking forward to, they're still building out their initial order platform, which they need to launch next week because that's when we have to start doing initial orders. But that was one of the drawbacks with the Pullbox system is I could not start initial orders until Pullbox closed the orders the Thursday before orders were due. So I had a very short window to do monthly orders where I would get subscriber data. Now I get it constantly.
Nice. That's awesome. what we're here to talk about is the year for challengers, just how the year was. And it's really interesting because I'm in the midst of doing my year in review stuff. And I have to admit, just as a forewarning, the last few years we've done this podcast and you've answered the questions. And I realized it was so duplicative that I cut you guys out. I'm sorry. There's plenty of other shops. We're talking here,
Fine.
Getting your full thing. But anyways, I am curious because I've heard...
What I used to do to counteract that is I would have Dal do the answers.
But it's been really interesting.
But yeah, you don't need to double dip. It's totally cool.
It's been really interesting to talk to shops because it seems like the spectrum is very broad. And when I say broad, I mean like there's very little in the middle. It's a lot of record years and like enormous years, and then a lot of shops that were like, it was a really bad year for one reason or another. I'm not saying you have to exist in one of those polls, but where did you land this year?
Well, can I be in both? It was our biggest sales year for sure. It was also the hardest we've ever had to work for it.
Is it worth that trade-off?
I'm going to say yes, because everything that we've been doing has been to make life easier. For the first time in the history of Challengers, we hired a full-time employee. We have a store manager now. And up until this point, it was just Dal and I working full-time. And then we had a whole bunch of really great part-timers. But now we have another full-timer, somebody who has honestly taken to these new systems quicker than I have, because I'm old and slow with technology, and Molly Jane is much better with things like that. Youth in your technology. So that is a thing that we did to look forward to look toward the future and to make years less hard than 2021 was. And also Manage Comics is a huge step to make things less harder for us, because nothing is going back to the way it was. Things are only going to get more broad and more splintered, and more publishers will be leaving Diamond, and maybe even new distribution channels will open up, and you need to be ready for it.
I was just thinking about how many shops I've talked to really, really want more distributors, so that sounds really good.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. That is not a thing that people are saying.
Oh, you know what? Honestly, I would believe that is the case.
Really?
Yeah, I would believe that. I mean, like everybody, the biggest, and this isn't that big of a deal, but the biggest drawback to having so many distributors is when somebody says, hey, is this book still available? We have to figure out who has that book and is it available? Today, someone's like, can you tell me when the next Swamp Thing, Green Hell, and Primordial come out? I can, but I have to go to 2 different websites.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I didn't, because Primordial is out. Primordial number 5 is out next week, so I knew that. But Swamp Thing, Green Hell, I had to go to Lunar to look up, because you can only look up DC release dates there.
Yeah.
There's a great web service called PubEasy, which is a link. Like, all the publishers are connected to it. Like, not the comic publishers, but all the book distributors, I should say, are connected to it. So you can go to PubEasy and type in a book, and it'll tell you, oh, that's Simon & Schuster, and yes, it's in stock. So you may need to, like, if it'll say, oh, that's Penguin Random House, fine, then we'll go to Penguin Random House and order it. But if we went to Penguin Random House, I'm just going to say PRH. I'm stumbling over the name too much. I'm going to say PRH. If we went to PRH and looked it up and it wasn't one of theirs, then we'd still have to go to PubEasy to figure it out. So
yeah,
it's still as important to us to get the information to the customer. If we can't get them the book, we need to know where it's coming from, when it's coming from, and who's got it.
I will say that Theoretical Customer has really good taste in comics, because Primordial is really good, and I just read the first issue of Swamp Thing Green Hell last night, and it's also really good. So good job, Theoretical Customer. But
he's a real customer. His name is Keith, and he's from England.
Oh, nice.
But he shops here now. Yeah,
that's awesome. And now a quick word from one of Off-Panel's sponsors. Macroverse is a next-generation digital comics platform, and one with an astonishing number of comics, with currently over 50 series from over 100 creators on their app, with a 5-star rating both on Apple and Google's app stores. Download the app and binge all their titles, including the Eisner-nominated Remind from Jason Brubaker, Lisa K. Weber's Hex 11, which has been described as Harry Potter meets Blade Runner, or the new queer supernatural adventure series Husk that launches on November 1st. It's just $4.99 a month to subscribe to Macroverse, with proceeds directly supporting the creators on the platform. Keep an eye on the future of Macroverse too, as 2022 is going to bring an epic upgrade that offers a new level of digital collectability and more, with early adopters able to sign up for more information at macroverse.com. And now, back to the show. One thing that I know we had talked about previously that was really standing out to you was your huge Wednesdays. Like, you were having these giant Wednesdays for a while. And I believe you told me, I don't know if it was like, if this is just a blip, but I believe you told me earlier this year that it kind of tailed off finally. What's the status with Wednesdays? Are they still weirdly crazy for you guys?
So they feel weirdly crazy because of all the extra steps and bringing people up. But not this Wednesday, but the previous Wednesday, I said to Dal, I'm like, man, I can't believe the dollar amount was this little. We were slammed all day. He said, we weren't slammed. We had 25 less customers than average on a Wednesday. Like, oh yeah, just all the extra steps make it harder. So I will say it like this. January of 2020 has started off a lot slower, and it is the lowest Wednesdays we've seen since the pandemic started, but they're still higher than pre-pandemic Wednesdays. And the weather in Chicago has not been great.
Yeah.
But also Januaries are always down.
It's also a really small month. Like, so far, like,
yeah.
I feel like the shipments have been a little lighter than usual. And granted, and also we have like Saga launching in like 11 days, and then a number of other things that are coming up. So I wouldn't be surprised if it picked up, but at the same time, I just thought that was an interesting trend. I did have a patron question that was kind of about what the in-store environment is like, because...
Okay. Let me give you one quick statistic for Wednesdays before you ask that question.
Okay.
We don't consider ourselves a Marvel store. Like, we carry Marvel, of course. Marvel does well, but we aren't like a Marvel destination. It's other things that do well for us. Yet, if Marvel has a small week, people don't come in. Wednesdays for us live or die by Marvel output. So even though there's Wednesdays that have amazing independent books, people don't come in.
Yeah, I think you've told me that before, where it's like Marvel. It's like if a DC book, like, I forgot what it was, but anyways, long story short, Marvel is the one that kind of drives like blanket customers who are going to get like independent books and stuff.
For sure.
And if they drop Marvel books, they're going to drop all of their books. DC, they wouldn't do that with, bizarrely.
Correct. But good news for retailers, next Wednesday is a huge Marvel week. Yes,
because they love doing like 20 books at the same time, as opposed to spreading it out week to week. But at the same time,
like 8 number ones in a month, in a week. I mean, yeah,
it's really crazy. But okay, so the patron Devin Fitzsimons asked about.
Hi, Devin.
Asked about basically like with like the shift of a lot of comic stuff online in a variety of different ways. How does like that affect the conversation in store? Is that still a thing, or is that morphed particularly in the face of the pandemic?
I don't think it's changed all that much. It is a believe it or not, it's the thing I was talking about with both Dal and Molly Jane recently. Even though our name is Challengers Comics and Conversation, we don't have as much comics talk on Wednesdays as we expect or as we want. Now, A, people haven't read the new books yet. We have, they haven't. But B, they're also not really talking about last week's books. Most of the conversation is either related to episodes of whatever Marvel show we're just on. A lot of the movies, like, who saw Spider-Man, things like that, because that's what the customers want to talk about. But also, we do have a lot of wrestling talk in this store. Specifically All Elite Wrestling. That is our promotion of choice. And so there's a lot of the chatter is wrestling themed, and that's basically been the last couple of years. But I lament the fact that we do not have long or even short conversations about the books. And you try to bring it up, like Rain from this week is excellent, and it's our pick of the week. And anybody who's getting it, I like to say, hey, this is really great. Tell me what you think about it. David, I've been doing this for 31 and a half years. Every time I say to somebody who's buying, let's say someone's buying Saga for the first time, I'm like, hey, come back and let us know what you think about it. They don't.
Yeah.
They'll come back and buy more, but they and that's not true. I would say like 20% of the time they do, or people that you don't even remember talking to will say, "Hey, thanks so much for recommending this book. I loved it," which is great, which is why we do this. But we don't have, like, this is not a Clubhouse store where people stand around and talk about the books that they bought. And granted, we don't want people to stand around and talk in a pandemic environment. We got rid of all of our plush red chairs and like all the stuff for the kids to play with, the action figures and coloring books. Those are all long gone because we don't want to advocate people staying in the store for longer than 15 minutes at a time, in a pandemic. But the environment hasn't changed so much. It's just the conversation is what changed.
Yeah. I would tell you what I thought of a comic if you sold it to me.
I know you would. And that's what we want. And like, we can do that, but that kind of talk usually happens on like a Thursday or a Friday when there's less people in the store, and people like, also Wednesdays are so top heavy now that there's a massive line right at 11 o'clock. So there isn't time to get in depth with somebody about a book that they're reading.
So that's still happening.
Yeah. Wednesday, like, I don't know very many people who have gone back to working in an office. Everybody still in this area is working from home, so they still show up. We have lines of people before we even get here. And like on some weeks you can say, oh, they all want Thor 20, whatever the speculator book is. But other weeks we look at each other and say, what's even the big book? What's the hot book that people want?
Kaiju Max.
And it's all
always Kaiju Max.
So good. So good. Only 3 more?
One
2
more. One more.
One more?
Yep. February 16th, I want to say.
When do you want to go and get our Kaiju Max bro tats?
Oh my God. I have one tattoo and it is very small and I'm never going to get a second one. So unfortunately, never. But I don't know.
You should get Grubbzo.
Oh my God.
Find him.
I would have to put it in a place that would be very hard to find, which would be most places.
The bottom of your foot.
Yeah, the bottom of my foot. Exactly. But, so that ties into the important question of all of this.
You're right.
Is,
I should get a Grubbzo tattoo.
Should you get a Grubbzo tattoo? No, so you had like your biggest sales. It was a lot more work, but I am interested in like what, if you don't know, like the speculator book, obviously it's not always just speculation, but what is driving those sales then? Like what's working for you guys?
Man, and here's the point where I have to admit that for every year we do this, I do a whole bunch of research at a time, and I break down sales and stats, and I have charts, and I've got year-end numbers, and I've got our top 100 graphic novel and single issue lists sitting in front of me as we talk. And this year I did none of that because I've had no time.
I know.
So here, let me, I will ask me a different question while I pull up my sales charts.
You know what you're selling. I mean, I don't need official. I mean, like, do you have like, are there lines? Are there publishers?
What I'm trying to do is I want to look to see, I haven't even done so much as to find out if graphic novels are outselling single issues, like what our bigger category is. I haven't even done like the numbers are done, but they haven't been collated. Oh, I opened the wrong file.
I want to do a quick like instinctual thing, and then we can compare it to the actual numbers. What do you think is higher, comics, single issues, or graphic novels?
Graphic novels.
What do you think the top selling comic was?
Oh, I can cheat and look that up.
Oh,
but
no,
I
don't cheat. That gets the point.
Well, I mean, things are always skewed a little bit.
What feels like it, though? Like, what feels like the big book?
Oh, man, David, you know how bad my memory is? I don't even know what came out this Wednesday.
Oh.
No, David, for you, I can do this.
I bought Monsters from you. Probably Monsters, though.
I can tell you what the best-selling comic of the year was, but it's a cheat. It was Berserker #1.
Oh, interesting.
Because we went all in on the 1 in 1,000 variant.
You did?
So we had,
that was the one that was signed by Keanu, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we did it we mainly did it 100% because it was returnable. So we did that. And then we're like, oh, we'll get the 1,000 since we can do that far. Yeah. But that also, Berserker #1 sold hundreds and hundreds of copies from us, and that is an anomaly.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing else touches that. It's not even, really isn't even close. But, and I feel bad for Boom in this regard, we still returned more than half
Right.
of what we ordered.
Isn't that
Yeah.
kind of, didn't they like do away to a certain degree with the ability to have returnability and those incentive variants because of things like that, basically?
Well, Diamond did it because of that specific book. Everything else used to be affidavit returns, where you just say, "Hey, I'm sending this much back," and they say, "Okay, we believe you." But for Berserk, they're like, "No, you got to strip the covers and send us the covers back."
Right.
But you send the covers to Diamond, so it was Diamond employees who had to count everything in, and that is what made them say, "We're not doing this again. You can't do it with, like, you can still do it returnability, but you can only have 2 covers maximum." And no book, especially a big new launch, has just 2 covers. Even if you have an A and a B cover, that would mean you can't have a 1 in 25, 1 in 50, or whatever.
I gotta say, I'm surprised that you ordered that. Well, I shouldn't be. I mean, it's smart to do it with returnability and the 1 in 1,000 variant. But then on top of that, I am surprised that you sold that mini of Berserker. Maybe it's a much more popular book than I realized. Maybe it was just a speculator darling, but I am surprised by all of that.
Well, Berserker 1 and 2 made it into our top 10. The rest of the top 10 are all X books, except ENIAC #1, because that was one of the few Bad Idea books that had a not first printing, a second print available. No other Bad Idea book cracks our top 10, but everything else is X-Men related, from Inferno to Planet Size X-Men to just the new X-Men series, like the end of the old X-Men series and the start of the new.
Is the X line continuing kind of the same levels, or is it dipped?
X-Men is doing great. Everything else is still going downwards.
Yeah. That kind of makes sense. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the whole X lives and X deaths thing, and then leading into like Immortal X-Men and everything. But I don't know. It's fascinating. I kind of feel, one conversation I've had with another retailer is just basically like, it's hard to point to specific successes right now. It's like things are going well, but it's like when you ask for like what the hot comic is, it's kind of hard to think of right off the bat.
Yeah, it's so different for everybody. Like, we really pushed 6 Sidekicks at Trigger Keaton because we got to read the first 3 books in advance, as you did, and saw how great it was. We're like, we're going to do this. And we brought Chris and Kyle out for a signing for it. So that always helps. That skews numbers,
Right. Like the #1 selling graphic novel for Comics Experience over in San Francisco is The Good Asian Volume 1, and it was because Pornsack did a signing there.
Yeah. And I mean, it deserves it, but that is a book that, as much as I love Good Asian, I question their trade theory on this.
In what
It's
sense?
a 10-issue it's a 10-issue series. And there's a trade of the first 4.
Yeah, that was really weird. I didn't get that.
I just want 1 volume. Like, I'm holding out because I know they'll do a fancy hardcover of all 10. But what do you do for the back half? Is it going to be
6 issues? It's got to be. Otherwise, they're going to do like 2.5 trades. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, exactly. Or 2 3-issue trades and do a lot of back matter. I don't know. That's what I mean. I'm like, why is it that? Why did you do that? And I kind of don't like the way Boom does all their trades as 4 issues at a time.
Yeah, I don't either. And they also release it at very strange schedules. It's like some are pretty close to the end of the arc, and other ones are just like, it's coming out in a year. And I'm like, what? Okay, that doesn't make any sense. But okay, so X-Men seems like it's doing well, although the other parts of the line are not like keeping up. 6 Sidekicks did pretty well. Berserker did well, at least the first 2 issues. What else is like, is there anything else that's standing out, or is it kind of like what that retailer was saying, where it's just like, it's going well, but there's nothing that's really like that North Star where you can be like, this is carrying us. This is the killer.
Well, I mean, something like Turtles Last Ronin does really well, but it's so late that it's not carrying us. It just boosts us for that week.
Right. Is there any like trade or graphic novel that's like consistently doing really well for you?
Yeah, I mean, we have a graphic novel display right when you walk in, and everything Brubaker does. I mean, all 3 Recklesses were in our top 10.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the weird part. Friend of the Devil was our 3rd bestseller of the year. Reckless #1 was number 6.
Yeah, but it came out last year.
That's never happened.
Came out in 2020.
They all came out in the same year.
No, they didn't. Reckless, the first book came out in October or November, December 2020, and then the other two came out in 2021.
Oh, I thought the whole point was that they were doing all three of them in the same calendar year.
Well, it was within the same 12 months. It wasn't within the same calendar year.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? That actually explains everything.
Yeah, there you go. Boom.
Fine. You got me.
I can't say I'm surprised by that. I mean, it's just like that's a consistent, like, I don't know. It's Brubaker and Phillips
it
is
came December 16th.
Yeah.
Missed by 2 weeks.
Brubaker and Phillips is an easy sell. But I mean, I know that they did the signed book plates. Did you?
Yeah, we did those.
You did those? Yeah. I didn't know that was actually, I was like touting how awesome it was that Cape and Cowl did that over in Oakland. And then Brubaker emailed me and was like, we did that for everybody. I think it was ordering 250 copies, was it?
In groups of 20. For every 20 you order, you get 20 book plates.
There you go. But that's pretty awesome.
But if you order 39, you still just get 20 book plates.
Yeah. I mean, that to me is like, it gives you a distinction versus other shops where you have a compelling advantage. Like, you should get this book here because you can get a book plate.
And the thing is, the retailers are still paying for those book plates, but they're not expensive.
Right.
But I mean, I don't think any stores are marking the books up because of it. We basically slit the shrink wrap on the spine and just slide it in, so it's still protected, but it's in there.
Is there anything else that stood out besides the Brubaker Phillips of it all?
Department of Truth was our best-selling trade.
Really? Volume 1? Yeah, that was
number 1. Yep, volume 1.
I'm putting up a piece from Big Bang, and I think it was number 3 for them, I want to say.
Okay. Monstrous is number 1, is still in our top 10. Saga, number 1, still in our top 10.
That's not surprising.
Like, Saga is the North Star that you're pointing at, and we have literally had more people come in to join our subscription service to make sure they don't miss Saga because Brubaker told them to.
What?
And that, like, because he posted about it on social media, like, hey, if you want to make sure you get this book, go to your store and fill out a, special order it or fill out a subform or whatever. Now, some people took that to mean they're not going to get it unless they subscribe.
Oh.
Which isn't true.
It's fine for you guys, though.
We're more than happy. And I tell everybody, like, look, we're going to have a ton. It'll be on the shelf. But if you want to sign up for it, so you guarantee you never miss it, and you don't have to worry about it, please do.
So do you have more subs now than when 54 came out?
No. And God, 54 is the weirdest book because that is the only issue of Saga that has never broken 100 sales for us.
Interesting.
Yeah. Even with this 3.5-year gap, it didn't jump up. So there was a point where we had, we're still about, let me think, 26 subs less than we were when Saga was at its peak for us.
Yeah.
But it's climbing back up.
And that was a pretty high peak.
Yeah, for sure. There was a point where during the Capullo and Snyder Batman run, Saga and Batman were racing to see who could get to the higher club numbers for us. Mm-hmm. And then Saga just blew Batman out of the water. And then Batman has never been anywhere near those numbers. But also, sadly, Saga fell a bit as well.
Yeah.
But the point is, Saga is the kind of book where with issue 7, we're going to bump up on this really high. I'm sitting in a store where all the lights are off and all the signs say closed. And people still pull on the front door. It's weird to me. It's a very dark store.
It's because they want Saga.
And we're an hour and 15 minutes after we close, but still, yeah, they want Saga. I mean, to be fair, there is a giant Saga number 55 midnight release banner in the front window.
Yeah, they're just lining up. They're getting ready for it 11 days early.
Sure. in Chicago winter, that's great. So we ordered so much higher on Saga 7, thinking all the trade people will, like the people that only bought the trade or whatever, they'll jump on, like they can pick up in single issues. And that never happened for the rest of the run. The people that were reading Saga in trade just read it in trade. Mm-hmm. So we would always think, well, we're not going to jump numbers at the start of a new arc, but this one we are because it's been so long. And I know there's a lot of discussion. Well, will people still remember Saga? I think more people are into the single issue idea of Saga now than before.
I agree. My prevailing theory is that the idea that Saga is going to drop because of the gap is very wrong-headed, and it's actually going to be up.
Yeah, I think so too, but that is an anomaly. I understand everybody who says they think it's going to drop. I understand why they're saying that.
Of course. I mean, that's the
but
logical
I think this is
take.
the exception.
Yeah. That's the logical take based off of how comics have worked forever. But I think in the last 3 years, they've had like a big podcast did an entire segment on it, Binge Mode. They did like a whole thing telling people to read it, and like a lot of them did. Now they're like, where's the rest? And they're like, now they know where the rest is. It's coming. And then there's like all kinds of other people have touted it. So I think I don't know. I mean, I think it's primed for a big jump, or maybe not a big jump, but it's going to be higher than I think people realize. But let's talk about what isn't working. Are there? It seems like there's not a lot that super stands out, but it's also you're up. So it strikes me as a situation where you're doing well. It's just hard to point to stuff that isn't really kind of connecting. But is there anything that feels like it's not really connecting that normally you would be betting on as a success?
I mean, we had high hopes for something like Bad Idea because they said all the right things. But now that Bad Idea is over, and I know there's still 2 more books to come out, but it's over for us. We lost a lot of money on Bad Idea because they only really cultivated speculators and not fans. And because we had to do the same orders for every issue of a series. Now, admittedly, they said that was only for the first story arc, but there were never second story arcs for any of their books.
Yeah.
So Bad Idea numbers, we would sell 200 of a number 1 and be down to like 64 of number 4. Well, we had to order the same numbers for all those issues. So we're getting stuck with all those extra books.
Can I just say this is going to be really amazing because I'm totally going to put the Bad Idea ad because they sponsor this podcast right here.
Do it. Do it.
And now, a quick word from one of Off-Panel's sponsors. That sponsor is Bad Idea, and I keep asking Bad Idea what I should say here, and they keep saying wing it. So, hey, Bad Idea. Find their comics, I guess. And now, back to the show. Yeah, I mean, I can't say I'm super surprised by that because, I mean, they just did the whole thing where they're asking everybody who was a Bad Idea store to like reapply or whatever. And it's like most shops I talk to do everything they can to make their lives as simple as humanly possible, which is not as easy as humanly possible, which is not normally an easy thing to do. And sure. It seems like in a lot of cases, Bad Idea is kind of asking for the opposite, which is problematic.
Yeah, the thing with Bad Idea is that they have good books and great talent. And I was talking to a customer today who said, I would have loved to buy the trades of their stuff, but they don't exist. Yeah. I think the cover to Odin's Eye #2 is one of the best comic covers I've ever seen in my life.
The art in it is amazing. That is. I haven't finished the series, but it is a really good book.
But it's also a $10 first issue and a $9 for the rest of the issues.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weekly. So that is a huge, if you have a budget, you don't have a budget for $40 in a month.
Yeah.
For one book.
Are you going to take 2 or 3, three, who am I kidding? 2 Marvel books? Or are you going to take Odin's Eye? Sorry, I just started getting into a hypothetical world in which Marvel comics were semi-reasonably priced, but
yeah, I know.
But
it's a dreamscape.
Yeah. What else? What else was a little surprisingly light, perhaps? Like I said, it could be a publisher, could be like a title, whatever.
I think that so many publishers are not committing to ongoing series, and they're just putting out miniseries, which, in theory, minimizes a customer's buy-in. Like we've got a subscriber who buys a ton of books and all the variant covers to all his books, but only if they're not ongoing. However,
that is
miniseries to everybody else. Yeah, I know. Miniseries to everybody else just says, I'll wait for the trade. And especially when there's books like Swamp Thing Green Hell or that really great Tom Taylor Constantine book, why buy 3 issues when you can just wait a little longer and get the whole story in one?
I don't know. I have to admit, Black Label has been a big thing for me. I know some people don't like the format, and it, in some ways it does make sense to wait for trade, but that Constantine book was really good.
Agreed.
Catwoman Lonely City is awesome.
Oh, it's excellent. But here, get this. So issue 2 is out, right?
Yeah.
Issue 1 was returnable, so we went higher on it than we normally did. Sold out of issue 1. We've got people who are picking it up at 2 and saying, hey, you can get me number 1. Not only can we not get you number 1, it's already been pulled from the Lunar website. You can't even search it. It doesn't exist anymore. Like, they are real quick at saying, nope, these books are gone.
That's not a Lunar decision, though, is it? That's got to be a DC decision.
But I mean, if you look at when DC was with Diamond, those books remained in the system forever. So you could at least go into it and it would say, out of stock, back order, low stock, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
This, you're like, did I type something wrong? What's not coming in?
Yeah, that's interesting. I'd be curious to know the origins of that, because it strikes me as the type of thing where DC made a decision, we're printing this, and that's all we're ever going to print. Suck it. And then Lunar's decision was just to pull it from the website completely, which adds questions to the whole thing. But yeah, that's really weird.
Going back to Back Label real quick, it's hit or miss. The hits are great, like the ones you mentioned, but then you have other books that just underperform. Superman versus Lobo is not doing what we hoped, and that's because that's even with Tim Seeley being local and him getting, like, we had him on Free Comic Book Day to really push his new books, to tell people about them and get them excited if they would. Some of the Joker Harley stuff they did just barely made it to the end of the run. I
feel like they kind of oversaturated the market on that. I will say,
for sure,
I literally did not know Superman versus Lobo existed. I don't know how that's possible, but this is a very specific one. I'm a huge Nice House on the Lake fan.
Sure.
How's that doing?
Yeah, it's great. It's doing great for us. Yeah, it's the kind of book that we God, I can't remember if there wasn't a PDF or we missed it, but we felt so dumb when that book came out and we read it after it came out, being like, man, we definitely underordered. Like James Tynion, my favorite comic writer of 2021. Department of Truth, Something's Killing the Children, definitely Nice House on the Lake. Nice House on the Lake was like my favorite book of the year almost. Favorite new book of the year, I'll say. How's
it's
that?
So
That's
good.
That fits.
It's so good. Yeah. I love it. It's such an unusual book. And also, it is the classic idea of comic shaped, which helps a lot, because this is one person who subscribes to Sketch, and this is no slander to him, but he hates the Prestige Plus format for Black Label books. Hates it. I think he actually calls it the bad format, which I think is really hilarious.
Oh, wow.
I like it, but I'm also a weird person who's like, different is good universally. So yeah, it's interesting. But one thing I do want to ask about in terms of good or bad, I know previously you had told me the back issues were doing well for you, which is not something that normally does well for you. Has that continued, or is that dunzo?
Yeah, they're not doing great, but they're doing better than normal. But here's the thing with our back issues. We, at the start of 2021, all of our back issues were 99 cents no matter what they were. We bumped that to $1.99. So we're doing better with them because we doubled the price. But we don't care about story content or value or whatever. We just put everything that's in our back issues, regardless of what it is $1.99.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a matter of moving volume versus people digging for, you're not going to find Ditko Amazing Spider-Mans on our back issues,
That'd be pretty cool if you did, though.
But I mean, there was way back in the day, somebody picked up a couple of copies of the first appearance of Miles Morales, because we don't it was basically the back issues are things from Mild collection, things we pull off the wall, things we don't buy, but some people we have exceptions with. But mainly our back issues are former rack copies that didn't sell.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. Honestly, I have my comic book garage sales, and I remember one year this person came and they bought all of my copies. I had the entire run of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, and I really liked that because I love the Knights of the Old Republic video, or I was a PC game when I played it, but at the same time, that game, huge fan of that. So I read the whole series. I liked it a lot, and I was like, I'm just gonna do this, and I can read it on Marvel Unlimited anytime I want if I want to read it again. So I just like whatever, and I sold all of them for like 50 cents each. And then later on, I remember telling the guy, I was just like, oh man, this is a really good series. I think you're gonna enjoy it. And they were just like, huh, yeah, sure. And I was just like, oh, okay. And then later, I found out that like apparently it's loaded with quote unquote Star Wars first appearances, which, you know, to me, I know this is like a dumb thing, but like the idea that the first appearance of any of these characters was in comics is just bizarre to me. It's just like first appearance of Luke Skywalker. I'm like, MFer, the first appearance of Luke Skywalker was in Star Wars A New Hope. My God, like it doesn't make any sense to me that.
Right.
Anyways, but regardless, I found out later that
you never know when a really dark-furred Wookiee is going to show up in a Boba Fett episode.
That's true. Well, I mean that Vader run by Kieran Gillen and Salvador Larroca is a killer. Period. People should have read that. But anyways, regardless, like I later found out that some of those Knights of the Old Republic issues apparently sell for like $300. So that person was definitely not buying that run so they could
read it. Yeah.
No, but
well, I think you should keep your wide-eyed optimism that's why they were getting it.
Yes, it was a much more beautiful world if they're buying it so they can read a story about a young aspiring Force user.
Yeah, we want to believe that everybody who shows up first thing in the morning on a Wednesday is buying a book because they can't wait to read it as well.
I will say that I started actually going first thing on Wednesday. Well, that is when comics actually show up on time, which is increasingly rare.
Sure.
But at the same time, I am not one of those people. I just mostly go there because I want to make sure I get the comics I would like think I'm trying to get.
Yeah.
And so, granted, I will say that I've been more militant about updating my poll list, so maybe that's helping things also. But okay, so going back to one topic that I brought up earlier, has there been any shift in terms of single issues versus trades and graphic novels, or is it kind of just much the same in the shop?
I think that people are more quick to jump off of single issues for whatever reason. Like here, I'm going to give an example because I'm walking the shelves. On our shelves right now, I'm at One Star Squadron from DC, which is Mark Russell and Steve Lieber, and a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And we have, between the two covers of cover of issue 1, we have 4 copies on the rack. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 copies of number 2. And I can tell you, we ordered less of number 2 than of number 1.
Mm-hmm.
People just don't come back.
I will say, you literally just made me realize I forgot to buy All-Star Squadron number 2, so I'm going to go back and get that. I'm guessing you don't have 10 people exactly like me, though.
Yeah, probably not. I don't know. Look at something like Basket Full of Heads, which did pretty well, and people like that book, and we sold that. The book sells really well for us in trade. We can't get people to buy a refrigerator full of heads.
That book
is
awesome.
Equally as good.
Yeah, that book rules.
You know it.
Yeah, I am ride or die for Hill House. Like refrigerator full of heads might be as fun as Basket Full of Heads, and that was a really good book.
It's just how often do you get to describe a comic book as an 80s action movie, but a 70s horror story?
There's a biker who has been decapitated who rolled his head through a forest, at least in part with the help of a deer who carried him back to his bike gang overlords to report on his semi-killing by a Norse axe. That book is awesome. I love that I could just describe that sentence. Anyways, but it is interesting because that is one of those trends that I think that has been, I don't want to say underreported because nobody reports on this type of stuff, but I feel like sampling has become a much bigger thing.
Yeah. Again, I'm just based off of the shelves I'm looking at, but Last Flight Out from Dark Horse by Mark Guggenheim. Excellent book. It's horror. The sales are really bad for us. So we love it and talk it up. And it's funny because like our social media, our Instagram, for example, when we do posts about like us in the store or me holding a wrestling belt or rain coming in through a window leak, tons of likes. When we say, hey, you should be reading, what is it? Dirtbag
Rapture.
Dirtbag Rapture or Last Flight Out, 10 likes.
Yeah. That's like, the nature of it.
Yeah, it is. But it's like, God, Dirtbag Rapture is such a great book. Last Flight Out is so good. We can't get people to buy Newburn. And it is a crime book that is
also a good book.
In the same category as Criminal.
I got to say, you're making me want to read this Last Flight Out because literally every other book you are talking about, I like or I read and like. But I mean, that comes down, I think, to put on my social media guru hat, because that's my day job. That comes down to generality versus specificity. Like, they know generally that they like you and Dal and the shop. They don't particularly have any affinity for any of these books. So it's much easier to like something that's about you guys being funny with wrestling belts versus like this comic that they don't know about. So which is too bad.
Admittedly, I don't care if they like a post about Dirtbag Rapture. I care that they come in and buy Dirtbag Rapture because they saw the post. That's what I want. But we never get that kind of feedback.
They really should read it. It's a really good book. But
yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about, I'm going to bring up everyone's least favorite word. We talked about it a little bit earlier. What is your current distributor mix? Are you using, for single issues, are you using Penguin Random House, Lunar, and Diamond?
Yes.
I've heard a lot of shops are switching back to Diamond, supposedly from Penguin Random House. I'm skeptical that it's as widespread as some have suggested, but I was interested to see if you had done it. And I mean, it makes sense.
No, we never will. And I'm never going to tell anybody how to run their store. But the cost alone is not worth it. We would have been to switch to keep getting Marvel books from Diamond. We would have been losing 10.25%.
Yeah.
From our discount.
You'd have to be pretty damn pissed at Penguin Random House to do that.
Yeah. And here's the thing we've learned about the book market versus the comics market. And this is something that may be obvious to some shops, but may not be to others. The book industry doesn't give a shit about condition.
No, it's reading.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter. Also, they buy everything returnable. So they don't care about the shape, and because they're buying returnable, they buy case packs almost all the time. Not almost all the time, but often. So like the single issues from PRH, they've listened to retailers and they change the way they do it. And honestly, one of my biggest pet peeves in the industry right now is how much waste there is in every shipment. Because it's every box is packed in another box and there's so much bubble wrap. I got to do this in front of customers yesterday because we had this massive PRH order to show up yesterday. They like, here, watch me open this box. And in this giant box that is filled with bubble wrap, there's a single comic mailer inside of it. And inside that mailer, two comic books, two single comic books.
Okay.
That's in this whole box.
It's bizarre.
And it was like that. And like this next box, same thing, except it had like 8 comic books. This other box had 3 copies of 1 manga. But that's because it's free shipping, so we can't complain.
Right. I mean, you can complain.
Also,
it's very wasteful, but at the same time, yeah.
Yeah. But then the way they package their graphic novels is so haphazard that when I opened that box, it was 3 mangas. There were 2 on the bottom in different directions and 1 on top of those. Like, why didn't you at least since you have all this bubble wrap the books in that or something? Like, even though you put all this bubble wrap in, it didn't stop the books from moving all over the place.
In regards to the condition thing, can you imagine trying to explain to somebody who primarily like distributes books to understand the idea of grading an act that makes it impossible to read the comic?
Yeah.
I mean, like that type of thing. That I'm not surprised that Penguin Random House is like mystified by the condition thing, because frankly, it's like that is a very unique. Like, comics are one of the only things that exist that is simultaneously built for as a collectible and as something to read, and that is those two things are very much in tension.
They don't coexist.
Yeah. Like for me, it's like I went to Emerald City Comic Con and there was like a million different vendors that were selling comics for like $50,000, and I was like, no. And I went over to this one that was like selling reader copies that were all like jacked up, and I was like, yes. And I went there and I bought a bunch of old Uncanny X-Men issues that I needed for like $10, and it was great. And it was.
You own those now. Those are yours. Those are your copies.
Are they a 9.8? No, I don't care.
No.
I don't care. But at the same time,
you wouldn't read
a
9.8 because it'd probably be in a slab or something.
Yeah, and you know what? I like, to each their own. That's their own thing. But I'm not surprised that Penguin Random House would be weirded by that. So I'm going to ask you a horrible question. If I had to ask you to power rank those 3 based off of the internal belief that your comics would show up on time and in good condition, how would you rank them 1 to 3?
Lunar, Diamond, PRH.
It's kind of what I thought it would be.
Yeah.
I think, as much as people want to yell about Lunar, and, everyone's got their rights, it sounds like they're pretty spotty in California for sure. It seems like they're pretty consistent and they actually take care of the books pretty well. So,
yeah, I got to admit that I do have this amazing leg up that their warehouse is 3 hours for me.
Oh, yeah. Well, get this.
I'm not worried about shipping.
So my shop, Anchorage, Alaska, not going to name, well, it's Bosco's. It's Bosco's.
Yeah, everybody knows it's Bosco's, David.
I know. So so Bosco's, I think my read is they are still ordering Marvel from Diamond. And the last 3 weeks, there's been a lot of issues going through Seattle because there's been a lot of snow. Omicron has like totally tanked a lot of like flights because they don't have people to fly the plane.
Staff it.
Yeah, exactly. And so over these last 3 weeks, their everything but DC shipments have been delayed. And they said that it's because of all the things that are happening in Seattle. Here's the weird part.
Wow.
They've gotten all their shipments on time from Lunar. So I really, I wanted to ask them, how does that make sense? But I decided against it because their job's already hard enough. But
sure,
it's just, it's very unusual. It's very unusual. And I don't know. It is really fascinating. Every week, like clockwork, they get their Lunar stuff in, and every week, like clockwork, they have no idea when Diamond's going to come in. And by like clockwork, I mean a really jacked up clock that never reads the time right. But anyways,
can I give you 2 quick PRH stories?
Sure.
One, Immortal Hulk Volume 10, the collection, graphic novel, the collection, came out recently. All of our copies are misprinted. In the massive double, like the fold out spread was in the wrong place in the book. It was all the way toward the back. It was in the wrong place. So we reported it as damages. And if you report 1 or 2 damages, they're like, yeah, fine, no problem. But when you say, hey, we've got 12 copies of this graphic novel that are messed up, they're like, we need to see pictures and you got to give us the invoice numbers and all this stuff. Fine. We do all that and say, hey, it's whatever. They're like, okay, don't worry. We have corrected copies. We're going to send you a call tag for those other ones, and then we're going to send you out the corrected versions. Fine. New versions show up, same exact problem. Hey, man, these are all messed up. It's the same misprint. They're like, yeah, sorry, just destroy them. Hopefully we can replace them. Meantime, Volume 11 has already come out.
So... okay, not to defend Penguin and Random House, because that is not a very popular thing to do, but that's a printer issue, though, right?
True, but they're the ones that said, hey, don't worry, we've got corrected versions here.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't?
They clearly have no idea what a corrected version looks like. They had a version.
In their defense, Volume 11 is just all the standalone one-shots, so you can read Volume 11 not having read Volume 10. It doesn't ruin anything.
Most customers don't even know that, though, right?
Yeah, but I mean, we tell that to people, but it's still like, hey, where's Volume 10? Oh, I can sell you a bad copy. I mean, we can't. We destroyed all those.
Yeah, that's very strange. That's very strange. But
we have an entire bookshelf in the back hallway between us and the barbershop we share the hallway with, just where all the misprinted stuff goes. And it's like our lending library to the people in the building. Nice. Feel free to read anything off this shelf.
I like it.
We're not selling it. It's just back here because it's bad. And then did you hear this? Did you hear about the Darth Vader 20 variant cover story?
No.
Okay, so orders for Darth Vader number 20 have closed. FOCs are done. As soon as FOCs are closed, Marvel says, hey, by the way, this variant cover is the first comic book appearance of the Mandalorian and the Child.
Oh my God.
Stores went, hold on. We would have ordered hundreds of copies of that book. They're like, too late.
When is it coming out?
It's not. It's whatever Darth Vader 20.
When
20 is the one.
When is it? Is it soon?
Yeah, it's in the next 2.5 weeks.
I'm gonna have to add that to my pull list so I can sell it for $1 billion.
Good luck. No one's gonna have it.
Yeah.
Because nobody ordered it because you just ordered normal Darth Vader quantities.
I hope you know I wouldn't do that. That is not me behavior. But
I absolutely know you were joking. I fell for the distributor line you said before about more people wanting more distributors, but I knew that was a joke.
How have I haven't even heard of that. I can't believe, I mean, like, what
Well,
the
here's the
hell?
thing. It's not that it's not them being malicious. It's that nobody knows what anybody is doing. Nobody at Marvel Comics knew that Black Chrysanthemum was going to be in the Book of Boba Fett. Nobody knew. You think Kieran Gillen knew?
I
He
guess
didn't know.
he probably figured it out when he was watching it.
Yeah, sure, but that's it. They don't tell anybody. Here's a great Marvel thing right now. They went back to press on a really fun collection of the Brubaker Aha Hawkeye stuff for the Hawkeye series, right?
Yeah.
They did two covers. They did a great David Aha cover, and then they did an Alex Ross variant where it's his classic Hawkeye costume painting cover. The Aha cover is long sold out. All you can get is the Alex Ross cover with a costume character that doesn't match anybody in the book and a style of art that doesn't fit the show or the book.
Yeah. That's weird.
And there's plenty of people, there's plenty of retailers that say that doesn't matter, or we can sell Alex Ross all day. For us, it's more like, oh, people will look at that and not know that it's the same thing from the show.
Right.
And then it's not indicative of the story. And it's a great piece. And I want to make clear that I have the Alex Ross. I bought the Alex Ross poster book because it had the fold out of the mural that he did for Marvel, where all those standalone covers came for. And I framed it and have it hanging up in my library. So I love that style and that classic look because I grew up the same time periods he did. But I don't want the purple costumed Hawkeye on the cover of, with the ears and everything.
Yeah.
On the cover of the book for people that are looking, hey, I saw the TV show. Where's that comic? It's this one. No, it isn't. Yeah, it is.
Well, I just got a couple more questions and we got to wrap up. I really quick, I do have to ask whether or not, I know like famously manga had real issues with supply chain across the board, everywhere, everyone. It was just a big thing. There was also problems for other publishers that didn't get the same chatter because manga was selling like boatloads everywhere. Did you find that the supply chain issues affected you in any major way?
Yeah, massively. Yeah. From being able to get actual supplies, bags, boards,
oh my God,
boxes.
Impossible.
Yeah. We have had so many different suppliers and so many different styles. And as you know, every manufacturer has they're slightly different. So the bags, the current bags we have now are slightly larger and some people don't like it. Some people love it, but also so many comics are so thick nowadays, so many DC books, so many bad idea books that they don't fit in current bags anyway. So we need them to be a little bigger. But I mean, yeah, the supply issues for that. Manga for sure. We doubled the manga shelf space we had in the past year. That's one of the changes we made. Yeah, definitely. I do want to point out that we spent 2021 refreshing the store. We got new carpet. We got all new signage outside, all new window banners. We did contract and hire someone or someones to do all new window art for us, but they are insanely busy. And we contacted them in October of 2020.
Wow.
And it still hasn't happened yet, but it's going to be great when it does. And I'm not obviously telling you who it is. But yeah, we spent like all that, like the money we were making, we spent on hiring a new person and we spent on making the store look modern.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was like, so while we couldn't get product, like, hey, we'll take that money and make us look better.
Yeah. I think
so.
That helps.
It was a big, yeah. I mean, it's so the store, I mean, we're going to be 14 years old. We still look brand new.
That's awesome. That's a good idea. Okay. Another question, based off of things being written on the internet, you would think that all retailers are super mad about Substack and other things like that. And I am interested in whether or not you align with that thing. Like, is that something, is that type of thing, Substack or like Comixology Originals getting like 8 Scott Snyder books and things like that? Are those a concern or are those just like whatever?
Not a concern at all.
That's
I subscribe
literally
to the
everything.
Substacks.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I just want to say that's the same thing I've heard from every retailer, which is fascinating to me because based off of like Bleeding Cool, you would think that every retailer was like pooping their pants over this.
All these books are going to come out to comic stores eventually. They're already, the Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo book, the Demon book, I forget what it's called.
We have
That's
demons.
in previews now. The All Nighter is on its way out. The Zdarsky book. We personally subscribe to Kelly Thompson, to Sophie Campbell, to Jonathan Hickman, to Chip Zdarsky. Who am I missing? Andy Stevenson and James Tynan. Yeah, those are all the Substacks we do, and that's a lot.
Yeah,
and then that's not counting the newsletter versions we do. I think my favorites are Andy Stevenson. His stuff is great. His journal comics are amazing and exactly what we wanted. Chip is so good with his, so funny.
And producing a lot of comics.
Yeah. Oh God, Public Domain is so good.
Mm-hmm.
Man. Tynan, all of his Batman office stuff, all of those essays are great. I'm liking Blue Book a lot. Yeah, the only one I'm not digging, and you're going to hate me saying this, is Jonathan Hickman's.
Sure.
Because I want comics. I want comics out of it.
I think that is a common story.
And we're not gotten that yet.
Yeah. I enjoy the process stuff, but at the same time, I totally get if somebody's like, oh, I really want like comics from this comic Substack. I mean, that's a legitimate complaint. I get it.
I would like the process more if I could see the comics that they're producing.
Yeah. You don't want, eventually you want to eat the sausage that they're making.
Yeah, like Kelly Thompson does a really good job of pulling out pages or issues or panels and saying, here's why we did this. And that's a process I like because you can see it in action.
I just think it's fascinating, though, because near as I can tell, like there's no conversation about the Substack stuff in comic shops. And so like it's not perceived as an issue because it's not like it's removing customers or making them buy less. It's, I guess, in a theoretical sense, they're not releasing, like Chip's not releasing Public Domain today, but he wouldn't be either because he's not done with it.
Right. And I don't think anybody we're not going to fault anybody for following a creator to their Substack because we did the same thing because we want that content. But also, nobody is saying, well, I can't buy any single issue comics anymore because I subscribe to too many Substacks. Yeah, they may be buying less, but they're still buying. People with Marvel Unlimited subscriptions still buy comics. They may not buy their monthly Marvel comics, but they'll buy other stuff.
Yeah.
Like nobody is just saying, nope, it's this or nothing for me.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, last question, and we got to make this one relatively quick. I apologize.
Sure. No worries.
What is your big hope for 2022? Are there any like big things you're looking for, or is it just kind of the same old, everyone should behave and help you do your job better?
Well, within the comics industry, what I would hope would be that there was some form of universal metadata that they all use to give to all the different subscription services. Every publisher puts their title information in differently. And if there was somebody to say, hey, let's all do it this same way and make it universal, that would solve 80% of the issues you hear comic stores complaining about as far as all these different distribution channels. That would make it all go away overnight.
That seems like a very good thing to do.
Yeah, but it'll never happen because you would need to get everybody on the same page. And why does Marvel care how DC presents their data, and vice versa?
Yeah. Also, because it's a very good thing to do, and most publishers are not into that sort of thing.
What I really want to see is another, and I don't mean to use this as the benchmark, but another Saga, another book that we can rally around and give to everybody. Joe Field has a really great quote, so that I'm going to butcher, that goes something like, I've always wanted to live in a world where there was a comic book for everybody. I just didn't think it would always be a different comic.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So something like that basically like, hey, we need something that reaches a lot of people together because there's too many smaller books that have too many smaller audiences. And here's a quote I love using nowadays. There are so many good books on the market right now. The problem is there are so many books, you can only afford the great ones.
Yeah.
So you're missing out on a lot of stuff.
I will say, at least you are getting the original one back. You're getting Saga back, so it's like you're back. You're back to one. You're back to one. Ideally, you get two. Ideally, you get more than two. But at the same time, I mean, beggars can't be choosers. That's a tough sell. But Patrick, that is all I have for you. Thank you so much for coming on to talk about the year that was for Challengers and the challenges that come with being a comic shop owner. I appreciate you taking the time.
My pleasure, David. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Off Panel with Patrick Brower, the co-owner of Chicago's Challengers Comics and Conversation. You can find Challengers in Chicago and their variant online platforms. Love Off Panel and want to support it? Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts today and give the show a rating or review while you're at it, but 5 stars only. You can also support the show by backing it on Patreon. Find the show at patreon.com/offpanel. And when you back it on there, you get early access to each week's podcast as well as weekly content and more. Want even more? Subscribe to my subscription comic site, Sketched, at sketch.com for long-form articles, interviews, and the rest of the site's content, and its members-only forum. You can find Off Panel and Sketched on social media by liking it on Facebook at /Sketched. That's SKTCHD. Follow on Twitter and Instagram at @SketchComic or following me at @SliceFriedGold. Big thanks to all my existing patrons, including Patrick Hoyle, Devin Fitzsimons, Joshua Corlett, Nick Walker, Isaac Warren, Scott Carpenter, Rent Narbs Studios Comics, Nicholas Palmieri, Capes and Tights Podcast, Klaus Van de Ven, Brian, Submit Industries, Raj Patel, Jack Mulqueen, Kyle, Carl Kerschel, Robert Masella, Elza Chartier, Luke Nakashoji, Elliot Metz, Dr. Lou, Scott Hazelwood, Scott Buwan, Michael Tunk, Canadian by Proxy, Johnny Cannon, Bradley Rader, Carl Troy, Brandon DePillis, Patrick Brower, Declan Shalvey, Dan Garino, Josh Williamson, Adam Freeman, Ben Wild, Brian Klein Q, SB, Nick Bennett, Daniel Whitfield, Susanna Polo, Reed Hinkley Barnes, Mario Tiambang, AbductedTheComic.com, Andrew Carita, Matt Mahoney, Charlie Chu, Stephen Hall, Pensacola Pop Comics, Kim Estlin, Philip Myra, Christian Shelton, Kenny Porter, Chris Pachalo, Torrin Grunbeck, Fuzz Bubbles, Christopher Todd, Transmitter Down, Waltz Comics and Books, Carl Mizell, Danny Ollie, Paul Salates, Akil Wilson, Alex Demetriopoulos, Terry Dodson, Wesley Gibb, Sean Kirkham, Alistair Ross, Julio Anta, Brett A. Schmidt, Jason Goodmanson, Paul Reinwan, Vita Ayala, Tara Ferguson, Dave Slusher, WMQ Comics, Akil Kokachi, Sean Pinello, Ken Heidelman, Philip Seavey, Al Ewing, Ryan Alcock, David Kelly, Robert Wilson IV, Nick Polito, Brendan Fletcher, Jonathan Nilsson, Matthew Groom, Jason Massey, Adam Bogert, Matthew Taylor, Nick Patera, Jacob Sorelli, Ford Gilmore, David Baraldi, Nick Hall, Bjorn Basin, John Hendrick, Steve Anderson, Ian Maxfield, Cliff Chang, Colin McMahon, Chris Palmer, Scott McGovern, Nathan Fairbairn, Kat McKenzie, Adam Highfield, Fiona Staples, Mark Abnett, Michael Murphy, Michael Shirley, Tom Barnett, Jim Demonakos, Norbert, Nick Lowe, James Kaplan, and Mission Comic Star in San Francisco. You guys are all the best. A quick thanks to Upright T-Rex Music, who wrote and performed Off Panel's theme song just for the show. Check out their music on Spotify because it's completely delightful. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week for another episode.